Well, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this hearing of the Commission investigating discrimination against Christians. My name is Tony Rucinski, and I'm one of the commissioners, and it's my job to chair this particular hearing. There are lots of other hearings taking place, and our guest today is Lizze Harewood, Elizabeth Harewood. But you'd like to say hi to us, first of all, Lizzie?
Hello, good morning.
It's great to have you today. We've got fellow commissioners as well on the call this morning: Jamie Bogle, Peter Williams, Nina Power, Robert Harris, and Edmund Adamas is our administrator. Just to confirm for anybody joining or listening in or after the event or during the event, the point of these hearings is not to make a judgment, but just to invite the person concerned to express the way in which they feel they've been discriminated against because of or down to their Christian faith. We as commissioners then will take it in turns to ask questions, just to clarify, not to make a judgment, but just to invite you to understand more about what's happened in the background and just to get a good grip on the detail, if you like, to see exactly what's gone on here. We recognize we're only talking to one side of the debate here, so it isn't a court of law, it's an exploration of the facts from the perspective of the person who feels that they've been discriminated against. That's what we're doing, that's how we're going to do it. And we've said hi to Lizzie. So what I intend to do for my fellow commissioners is just go around the room, and perhaps you can ask one or two questions. We'll start with Lizzie, but then we'll go around the room and we'll ask one or two questions each, and then we'll have a follow-up session and just try and get to the root of what's been going on. So we'll begin, if that's okay with you, Lizzie. I wonder if you just take a few minutes to outline the situation that you've experienced and how you feel you've been discriminated against.
Sure. Would you like me to begin from the very beginning in terms of what happened, etc.?
Well, yeah. I mean, what I'd like you to do, I think, and now all of us have received an extensive bundle of information, and it's probably not going to be possible for us to go through every detail of that, maybe, Absolutely. In the time given. But if you could just start off with a broad summary of what happened and how you feel you've been discriminated against.
Okay, so I'm Lizzie. I work for the Association of Christian Teachers. So I lead a charity that supports Christians working in education, and we seek to connect Christians that work in education. We seek to resource them with biblical helps and opportunities to think through issues in education, podcasts, etc., blah, 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 blah. And we also seek to influence the sector on issues that our members are concerned about. I was invited by an organisation called Westminster Insight. It's an organisation that offers events and policy briefings and training courses across various sectors, mainly the public sector. And they do lots of training and conferences in the education sector. They asked me to contribute to a conference that they were running on relationships, sex, and health education. They invited me in particular to contribute to a roundtable discussion on religious and cultural sensitivities when planning, teaching, and delivering RSHE. Now, obviously, I would probably be a reasonable person to approach for this because I represent hundreds or if not thousands of Christians across the UK, as well as many Christian children, families that would have a vested interest in this. And it was meant to be a platform for perspectives on curriculum and a place for dialogue, discussion about the development of the curriculum and delivery of it. And I was under the impression, in fact, I was told that my inclusion was suggested by a reputable source who had heard of some research we'd done, some work we'd done right in this on this topic. So I consulted with my board of directors and said, would you be happy for me to take part in this? They considered it and said, yes, absolutely, we would. It'd be an excellent thing to do. And so I agreed. And I was particularly encouraged because I felt that this was a good opportunity to, as the memo they gave me was to teach teachers, how do we train teachers to teach impartially without imbuing judgment on those who make different choices. And I thought that's a great opportunity that I can kind of bring up the perspective, the voice of Christians, how we can be sensitive to Christian perspectives when managing curriculum, how we can think about what a Christian perspective might be on relationships and sex, on the place of marriage, on perhaps some of those sensitivities we might have that are defined and given to us by our Christian beliefs. So I was very happy to do this, and they were seemingly very happy to have me. However, there was a bit of an unexpected turn when I heard from the conference producer a number of months later, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm allowed to mention names. So
just keep it anonymous for now.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Who said that now that some of the other contributors know that there are a couple of religious perspectives on the agenda, there may be a potential clash of ideologies. And the conference producer contacted me and said, I want to make you aware of this. Is there anything you can say to reassure me? And I wasn't entirely sure what she meant. So I rang her, as she said I could do. And she told me that some of the other contributors had suggested that they might pull out if I were to remain involved. And I obviously asked why. And they made some kind of assumption about me and about the organisation based on my Christian faith, I believe. So the producer took the a decision at a later point to remove me from the programme. They believed that my involvement would lead to ideological conflicts, and she expressed that they didn't want to be associated with ACT in a public context, given our religious stance on LGBT issues. Now, I must say that I did assure the producer that I did not want to make this into a confrontation of worldviews. I simply wanted to offer insights from a Christian perspective, grounded in many of our members' experience and others in the Christian community. I wanted to provide a kind of a religious context for certain beliefs that are related to sexuality and gender, because this was the very reason for me being invited. And I wanted to confirm to her that I would be respectful, constructive. I said, please do share my contact details with others. I wanted to reassure her that they had no reason for them to be concerned. I was not going to attack them. I was simply going to have a place at the table, which I was very grateful for. But sadly, later on, I think it was the 12th of October, I received an email. And due to the sensitive nature of the subject and the potential for a clash of ideologies, she asked me to step down. And obviously, I was concerned and I was dissatisfied. I mean, personally, I don't take this as any. I see this as a thin end of the wedge, and I know that this is not an attack on me. It's an attack on the right to express a belief. So I did follow that up, and I wrote to the organisation, and yeah, and then things kind of developed there.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a great start for us, Lizzie, and thank you very much for that. And you mentioned you wrote, and you also used a tool called a subject access request, which people should make themselves aware of. A very powerful tool from a personal perspective when faced with these sorts of things with organisations. So what we'll do, Lizzie, if it's okay, we'll go around individuals alphabetically maybe, and just ask for a couple of questions each that you might want to feed back to, and then we'll go around the loop again and hopefully exhaust a lot of the detail while hearing from everyone at the same time in a reasonable amount of time, if that's okay with you. So we'll start off then alphabetically, takes us to Jamie Bogle. Jamie, would you like to ask Lizzie a couple of questions?
Yes. Hi, Lizzie. Jamie Bogle is my name.
Hi.
I have got a few questions, so Tony will stop me if I'm going on for too long. Some of these questions are a bit obvious, Lizzie, but if you can just just say the answer, because that I hope will get the facts out for anyone reading the subsequent report. I'm just looking at the emails in particular that you had with Sam Irvin and also with Alice Catterall. If you take the email of the 10th of October 2023, timed at 11:02 British Standard Time, Sam Irvin, who is the producer of the Westminster Insight program, and Westminster Insight is part of the Knowledge Exchange Group, or the program being, as you told us, on RSHE. She says the following.
I'm so sorry. I'm missing some of this.
Okay. Could I ask everyone who's not speaking just to mute their microphones while you're not speaking? It sometimes aids the clarity of the signal between the two people. Is that all right?
Can you hear me all right now, Lizzie?
Yes, that's much better. Sorry about that.
No problem. And I was just saying who Sam Irvin was, the producer of the program, and that the discussion was on RSHE, relationships, sex, health, education, sexual and health education. And she says this in the email of the 10th of October 2023, timed at 11:02. I have a rather delicate matter to raise, and I would be grateful if you would get back to me right away. I'm struggling to confirm a couple of other speakers for the above event because they're worried about a clash of ideologies now that they know there are a couple of religious perspectives on the agenda. It seems very convoluted language, more designed to obfuscate than clarify. What do you think she meant by a clash of ideologies now that they know there are a couple of religious perspectives on the agenda? If it meant anything.
Well, this is what I followed up via a phone call. So I think she was concerned that there would be potentially quite heated discussion about perspectives on LGBT inclusion, and that some of the other parties who were very pro-LGBT, and I don't know if I'm allowed to now say which party it was, but
you can if you want to.
Yeah,
as we've started naming names.
I think I'm going to in due course, so you might as well.
So at this point, I didn't realise that it was Stonewall, but I found out subsequently that it was Stonewall who Sam had been discussing this event with, and there were concerns that because we obviously have raised issues in the public domain, albeit in, I would say, quite a respectful way, raised concerns about the place of rather political and indoctrinating ideas and ideologies, that there was going to be a clash of perspectives, which would then make this unmanageable. And I understand that that would potentially raise concerns. Of course I do. However, I think managed well, we could discuss some of those religious sensitivities. I think the obvious takeaway is that one ideology won, as it were. So yeah, they were concerned that my Christian faith would mean that there would be a clash that would be unmanageable, and that my religious faith would obviously mean that I would have some kind of combative approach towards them.
Thank you very much. She goes on in that same email to say that she does, quote, and I'm now quoting her, appreciate that RSE, and in particular the topic of LGBT, is very sensitive. And then she says she was, quote, hoping we can find a resolution so we can continue. Did she explain what she meant by that?
So when I phoned her, straight away, she she said, please do feel free to call me. I said, you know, hi, I'm really sad to hear this. I'd like to find a resolution as well, so that all parties can still be involved. I had no objection to sharing a platform with Stonewall, because I suppose I took the opinion that it's good to have an opportunity to discuss these issues in the open without it descending into chaos or name calling or slanging matches or anger. So I said, please, you know, as part of the resolution, why don't I chat with this person? I can reassure them. You know, if you would like to give them my details, my number, my email address, you know, maybe we can then have a conversation prior to the event, which would reassure them that you know, all I'm going to do is represent a Christian perspective on relationships and sex education, which may be different to what that particular group is saying, would be on behalf of their stakeholders. But the idea is that we have to discuss these things, because if we don't, then one side is amplified and the other is either silenced, and potentially it then becomes more of a battle, more inflamed.
Thank you again. Did she find a resolution, or even explore any possible resolutions other than outright cancellation?
Well, I don't believe she did, and I think that's quite obvious from the email. So I did a separate subject access request to Stonewall, and I think it's pretty obvious from that no, there was no resolution even intended. And actually, I believe that the concern about this wasn't instigated by Stonewall. I think it was instigated by Sam, once she'd realised what this might entail.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. I think you've answered my next two questions already. She went on in a further email, which seems to be undated and untimed, to say this, quote, "It's an extremely sensitive topic, and it would not be appropriate to pursue this at this particular event." Did she say what she meant by saying it would not be appropriate to pursue this at this particular event? Did she ever explain how it might be so? That is to say, inappropriate?
No, and I got back to her, and I did say, you know, this is disappointing. Can you explain in more detail what the concerns were? And she said, I'm very sorry, I can't go into the specifics, but she's aware that it's highly sensitive and there's lots of strong feelings. She said she wanted to avoid any adversarial exchanges and conversations that might end up being less constructive.
Right.
But I suppose implicit then is the idea that I would be the one that would create those adversarial exchanges.
Yeah. Well, we'll come on to that in a minute to see just how even-handed the approach was, or how, or not. In an email dated the 13th of October, timed at 14:01, which is in response to your email of the 12th of October, timed at 16:33, in which you asked her to explain what the concerns were and which organizations raised them, she said only this. I think you've just reiterated, "I'm very sorry, I'm afraid I can't go into the specifics. I'm very aware that it's a highly sensitive topic, and with the current strong feelings on different sides of the debate, I wanted to avoid any adversarial exchanges and conversations that might end up being less constructive and distract from the otherwise hopefully helpful themes of the event." In short, what you've just told us. Did she ever say what topic she thought was highly sensitive, unquote, or why?
I mean, there was a kind of quite a broad brush of teaching about LGBT issues, but there was never any dissection really of what she meant by
Did she actually say she meant LGBT issues?
Yes.
She did. She did say
Yes.
that. Okay. And did she go into detail as to what the current strong feelings on different sides were, or even who the different sides were?
She wouldn't tell me who the different sides were. She did mention that she had had a positive response for contribution from representing Jewish faith, and I don't believe that there was any problem with that individual. But no, she wouldn't tell me who the other party was, and she didn't say exactly what the issues were, apart from they knew that LGBT issues or the topic could be rather divisive, and I got the impression, if she didn't say it explicitly, that she wanted it to be inclusive of LGBT perspectives. But again, that was never really, the detail was never extracted from that. And I tried to explain exactly what our position was, but I strongly reassured her that as a Christian, it's my mandate to treat everyone with dignity and respect, and we would be simply giving the perspective of many Christian families whose children will be in schools or who may be teaching in the schools, and actually what the government guidance says as well. So I certainly was trying to just affirm that we were sensible and level-headed, and not wanting to cause any division whatsoever, even if we did have different perspectives from others on the panel.
I think I'm right. I think it's uncontroversial.
Jamie, could I ask you to hold?
Can I just get on to Alice Cattrall, because that's
go on then. Okay.
I'll just deal with that. The Jewish representative was a rabbi, and I think it's uncontroversial that he remained on the panel, or would have remained if they'd continued with it. So did she actually say she was dropping you because of your Christian beliefs, or was that something you simply gained by a very clear impression?
So when I had the phone conversation, which was the only discussion I had, it was rather easy to ascertain that the reason I was being dropped was because of my religious beliefs on LGBT issues. And I think in the email exchanges, I think she even says, now that one of the other parties knows that there are a number of religious perspectives included, they are concerned. And so I then come to the conclusion that because I'm a Christian and the matter of LGBT issues has been raised as a specific concern, that it must be to do with a Christian perspective, or what they perceive a Christian perspective to be on LGBT issues in the RSE curriculum.
And although you received only redacted emails, although I'm not quite sure why the emails from Westminster Insight were redacted, it's quite obvious that it must have been Sam Irvin who was writing them. But it also seems obvious that the objecting organisation is, as you have said before, Stonewall. Is that what you get from those subject access requests?
That was confirmed to me when Alice Cattrall, who heads up Westminster Insight, when she phoned me, she told me that it was Stonewall.
She did, I thought. Yeah. Well, just going on to Alice Cattrall, and I'll finish off with that. She sent, she's the managing director of Westminster Insight and of KEG. In an email from her dated 3rd November, timed at 12:56, she actually apologizes to you, detracts from the decision of Sam Irvin, and she says this, quote, subject to research with schools and key stakeholders, and considering the half-day event format, we took the decision to remove the session focusing on religious and cultural sensitivities and the spotlight session on transgender and gender identity. As the conference progressed, we decided to hone in on the following issues. And then she lists a few which are very different, national policy and guidance, designing a policy, monitoring assessment, training and resources, and focus on how different schools deliver the curriculum. This represented quite clearly a decision to leave out of the program the segment which you were scheduled to participate in. Did you feel this was providing you with a genuine reason, or that it was somehow disingenuous, or simply a backdoor way of reaffirming Sam Irvin's decision to exclude you, or something else?
I think that after this is my takeaway, this may not be accurate, but I believe that after some thought, Alice Catterall realised that this was a bit of hot water that they'd got themselves into. There was absolutely no legitimate reason for me to be removed, and that obviously this was something that was directly linked to my Christian faith, and there was some uneven treatment there. And I believe that her idea to diffuse it would be to take that section out altogether and perhaps make some kind of promise that may not be followed through at some point, to have more of a focused session or conference about the issue when other things were going to come to light, i.e. some of the reviews of materials and the guidance for schools on some of these issues, which now obviously many have come out or are due to come out. She was very, very apologetic and seemed to be quite upset about the way the ACT had been treated. And I had quite a long phone call with her. But I imagine that the concern was more about the reputation of Westminster Insight, because
Well, just for final question then is, was it really an attempt to smooth over what, even to Alice Catterall, was clearly Sam Irvin's manifest discrimination against you by simply excluding you for your own Christian beliefs?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll let others have a go.
Great. Fantastic. We'll come back to you, Jamie, because I know you've got some very insightful questions to ask yet. But just to give other people an opportunity to ask as well. And thank you, Lizzie, for your responses so far. Robert, I wonder if you could unmute yourself, and if you've got a few questions for Lizzie in the first round.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, Lizzie.
Good morning.
I'd like to begin asking you about the conference content where you were concerned, if you had spoken. So what were you hoping to achieve in contributing to this particular conference? The reason I ask that is because it was a secular conference. So how would you have presented the religious, the Christian dimension of RSHE?
So part of the remit was discussing how to manage the sensitivities around cultural and religious differences. So one of the ways would be explaining what Christian teaching is on relationships, on sex, on the institution of marriage, and what we believe the Bible says about marriage being a union between one man and one woman for life, and that is what the Bible says is the appropriate context for sexual intercourse. I'd be explaining how Christians have strongly held belief that, again, that God creates humans to be male and female, and that this isn't something that can be altered. And I would say that when it comes to tolerance and respect and inappropriate or disrespectful comments, that I have seen and heard of many Christians and Christian students coming up against harassment and bullying in the classroom. And I would have given examples, many examples that I've heard of where this has been the case, and explaining that tolerance works and respect works across society, and also perhaps just discussing how we can design curriculum not to imbue judgment. So in the sense that we can move away from placing judgment on types of relationship that perhaps now we're starting to say we have to celebrate. Actually, for a Christian, that's a very difficult thing to do, because to celebrate a relationship that would be unholy and unbiblical would be something that would be they would have to, in effect, be disobedient. Doesn't mean that they can't respect it, but I think just trying to understand that when it comes to vocabulary that we use, from what we ask children to do in lessons. For example, I've heard of lessons where children have been told to stand up and then sit down if they don't agree with this, that, or the other. And I know of one child who was the only child in his class where he put his hand up, or he remained standing up when they said, who doesn't agree with homosexuality, who doesn't agree that that is a good thing that should be celebrated. And he was then treated with great disrespect and bullied, in fact, by a teacher. I think that these are kinds of things we need to ensure that we're not indoctrinating children to believe something, but rather showing them facts and showing them the benefit and the costs of different kinds of lifestyles, but also ensuring that we are respectful towards different types of families. And that's something that I would always press, that we must never imbue judgment on others, but create a world of tolerance and equality, as was the mandate.
Thank you. The word cancellation or being cancelled came up in the documentation you sent us, because obviously you were not allowed to speak, so it's understandable why that word came up.
Yeah,
we hear that word a lot in society, but I'm interested specifically on the facts of your case rather than other cases. In your view, is this an isolated kind of event on the facts of your case where a Christian is going to be invited to a secular conference and then is told, sorry, we don't want you now? Or can we generalize, in your view, can you generalize more about what this says about our society?
Gosh, I certainly don't think that this is a one-off. And I know from research I did amongst ACT members, some of them have been, in effect, cancelled from teaching relationships and sex education once their head or head of department knows that they are a Christian, because they're concerned that they may teach a Christian perspective or may include a Christian perspective. And obviously there's more detail there that wouldn't need to be garnered, but these are not isolated incidents. And I think the idea that you are removed from delivering something because you are deemed not to have a neutral perspective, and in particular a Christian perspective, is quite disconcerting. And I think the irony of this particular situation is quite striking, in that according to the government, schools are allowed to talk about different perspectives in relationships and sex education. and actually balanced debate can take place about things that are seen as contentious. And I think actually that's something that many schools and perhaps wider society have been quite worried about. I sense that there's a bit of a sea change now.
Okay, thank you. I note in the subject access request, there's mention of 2 emails that are of one of your former employees. That someone who used to work for ACT is mentioned twice. I don't think it's necessary for me to mention the person's name, but the point is, this was in the context of gathering all the information the relevant parties had on the Association of Christian Teachers. So my question is, have you or any other representative of your organization, has anyone ever been invited to any secular conference before dealing with RSHE, whether it's these organizations or any other organization, as far as you're aware?
Sorry, no, I don't know if I've missed any reference to a former employee. Would you be able to? Because I'm not aware of that at all.
Yeah, it's your former director, former director, Chris Ison.
Clive Ison.
Clive Ison, sorry. Yeah.
Where? Sorry, is that in? So that is in.
It's mentioned in the subject access request. I've got it here. It's on page 31. Both of his emails.
And Robert, could you just elaborate for Lizzie, save her looking it up? So in what context was it mentioned? Who mentions it,
Yeah.
etc.?
So the point is, his 2 emails are mentioned. My question is, again, I repeat, has anyone from your organization ever been invited to a secular conference dealing with RSHE matters? That's my interest here.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't. I see. Arison. Okay. No, not that I'm aware of.
No. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I've got a number of other questions, but I'll pause it for now. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks, Robert. Thank you very much, Lizzie. I think we're on to Nina. If you could unmute yourself, if everybody else could mute, and please, the floor is yours to ask Lizzie some questions.
Sure, thank you. Hi, Lizzie. Yeah, I just want to pick up maybe on one aspect. We've gone through quite a lot of the technical and the requests and everything, and I'm just curious to get your reflections a little more on this question of prejudice, in the sense that there was an obvious, wherever it came from, whether it was a Westminster organisation realising they'd made an error and backtracking, or where the pressure came from Stonewall, whether it was this Sam person talking to Stonewall or whatever, there seems to be a kind of assumption, obviously, as you mentioned, being made about your position, religious, that might have political ramifications or whatever, and the idea that your position would therefore necessarily cause disagreement, even though dialogue and debate is something that the Westminster Group says that it's interested in. I'm just wondering if you could speak a bit more personally. I mean, I know you're speaking very sort of technically and rationally about how that assumption about your position, so someone else assuming what it is that you might believe, thinking that they know what it is, and then I suppose the further assumption that's being made that belief would then mean that you would speak in a certain way, or that you would cause problems. I just wonder if you could speak a bit more about the effect that realization had on you.
So I suppose that was more just an indicator of the zeitgeist. On a personal level, because I have never met this lady, it didn't offend me personally, but it did make me think of it. Kind of gave me flashbacks to those times that I've had conversations with perhaps colleagues or acquaintances or friends who, when they talk about certain issues, to do with marriage or sexuality, and they've said something that they think is so obvious, like, isn't it wonderful that, you know, there's equal marriage now? And I get to that point where I think I want to say something because I want to stand up for what I believe in. This might not be the right moment, but I don't want to be seen as a bigot. Or when I'm making friends with someone who I know is gay, and I do have a number of friends who are gay, I want to go the extra mile to let them know that I'm a kind, loving person who will. Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Oh, it seems very silly, doesn't it? Because I wasn't really emotional about this, but yeah, I will try to do my utmost to let them know that I value them as an individual, as a person who is imbued with dignity and worth. And similarly, we have in our family, we have a trans person, and similarly, my husband and I would want to do all we could to ensure that we would let them know that we're not bigoted, we don't hate trans people, but we do believe that there is an ideology behind it that is damaging, and is particularly damaging for vulnerable people. And this person is quite a vulnerable person, and we can see already there's been some damage done. But the way that we can meter that conversation in the public square, yeah, it's a hard one. I suppose it comes back, doesn't it? It starts with the big societal kind of, I don't really care what the Westminster Insight thinks about me, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who will be setting that kind of tone, and then individuals will eventually be impacted. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, I'm just if we could just sort of pin down maybe the word a bit, because I'm thinking, you know, there's a prejudgment being made about you, your beliefs, and how you did therefore supposedly behave or be on the panel. Would you describe that as did you understand that as prejudicial, or as a kind of assumption, or as a kind of discrimination either? I'm just wondering if we could pin down the sort of exact feeling.
There was prejudice, so they had made a predetermined judgment that either my views or the way that I express my views would be combative, would be derogatory. It would create some kind of tension that would then be unmanageable, and that ultimately that would be because the views themselves were unmanageable and abhorrent.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all for me for now.
Great. Thanks, Nina. Lizzie, do you need a break at all, or are you happy to carry on?
I'm okay. No, I'm fine. Thanks.
Yeah. Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, Peter, if you could unmute yourself. Firstly, thank you for your patience, Peter, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you very much, Lizzie, for being with us. It's very, very interesting as a case, and of course, the problem very often is that coming last, you have all of the questions exhausted, but thankfully there are some left. I'd like, if I may, just to drill into some of the detail of the email exchanges which you very helpfully got through the subject access requests, and also then zoom out and see what your impression is of these exchanges, because I think that they are quite instructive. So what I've tried to do is go in kind of chronological order. Obviously, the subject access requests were not in chronological order. I've tried to follow the various different conversations that were had concerning you and your appearance on the panel. It seems to me it starts with an email from Sam Irvin to you. And this is actually dated 10th 2023, which is not the way that emails are generally dated. And it does look like it might actually be on the 12th. But in any case, this is the earliest in this entire exchange of these three conversations, which all concern you. I think it should be clear that, you know, if you've made these subject access requests, then all the data concerning you will have been given to you. That is the way it should work, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, this should be the earliest email concerning these matters relevant on this period. Hi, Lizzie, I hope this message finds you well. I have a rather delicate matter to raise, and I would be grateful if you would get back to me right away. I'm struggling to confirm a couple of the other speakers for the above event because they are worried about a clash of ideologies now, that they know that there are a couple of religious perspectives on the agenda. I wonder if you had spoken to RSE before, you can give me a steer on your views, etc., etc. I appreciate the RSE, and in particular, the topic of LGBT is very sensitive, so I hope you don't mind me approaching you about this. Now, she then mentions a resolution so they can continue, but I just want to point out that is marked 10th, 11:02. Then we go to your email. Your email is then on the 12th of October at 12:01. I think it's unlikely that you would have replied 2 days later, but it's entirely possible. But you then say, "Hi, Sam, I was wondering if you had any further correspondence with the other contributors for the roundtable discussion." And then we have another email, which is undated rather unhelpfully, and they really should have dated it, and maybe it was just missed out somewhere, where you are then told by Sam Irvin, "Hi, Lizzie, apologies for the delay in getting back to you. After giving this much thought, I'm very sorry, but I'll need to ask you to step down." Now, I don't know where that is in the conversation, but I want to just take that exchange and compare that with 2 other exchanges, one with Sam Irvin and Jenny Fox from the PSHE Association, and another from Sam Irvin to a person who's redacted. We don't know who this person is. This is at 12:31. So this is after she's said that a couple of other people are concerned about your presence. This is at 12:31. "Hi, Jenny, thank you so much for your email. There is one other rather delicate matter that I wanted to ask you if possible. I'd originally confirmed Lizzie Harewood, Executive Officer at Association of Christian Teachers, to join the roundtable discussion, ... I just wondered whether you had come across Lizzie before, whether you were able to give me a steer at all. But one of the speakers is potentially a bit worried about Lizzie's ideological beliefs." Now, we don't have any, at this point, any expression of concern from anybody else about your ideological beliefs. They only have the question from Sam Irvin. Then there's the redacted conversation. This is at 11:40. This is actually before the 12:31. "Hi, thank you so much for your email. I really appreciate you confirming your session. One very last quick query. Do you have any objections to Lizzie Harewood, Executive Officer, Association of Christian Teachers, being on the agenda as one of the panelists on the session in question? If this is a potential problem, that's fine, but I just want to check with you first." This person then gets back to them at 1:50. "Hi, I've not heard of the organization before, but I've just read an article they wrote about the trans guidance on their website. I don't think it would be appropriate for both of us to be on the agenda. If you could let me know, how would you like to proceed?" And then 5 minutes later at 1:56, well, I understand it might be Sam Irvin. It might not be, because of this case, it's all redacted. "In that case, I will remove Lizzie Harewood permanently from the agenda. I don't wish to upset anyone, and we strongly wish this event to be LGBT inclusive, so please don't reconsider. I will let Lizzie know that she can no longer speak." That may be the point when she then gets back to you. And then then there's an express email at 2:20 from Sam Irvin to Jenny at the PSHE Association, saying, "Apologies, Jenny, but I just wanted to provide a brief update since sending my last email. After much deliberation and discussion following further feedback from another speaker, we've asked Lizzie Harewood to step down. We didn't intend this debate to turn into a clash of ideologies, and that is what I fear will happen, sadly. It is an extremely sensitive topic, and we do not wish to upset anyone. Therefore, I've removed Lizzie from the agenda." And then Jenny Fox says she's going to pull out anyway, because she's concerned, this is at 4:56, because she's concerned that a roundtable on the issue per se would not be ideal due to the current strong feelings on both sides, and that this setup would lead itself to adversarial exchanges and conversations. And Sam Irvin then at 8:23 sends saying, that's fine, I totally understand. At that point afterwards, that on the 13th of the 10th, she says that we can't go into the specifics as to why they effectively cancelled you, but I'm very aware it's a highly sensitive topic with the current strong feelings on different sides of the debate. I want to avoid any adversarial exchanges and conversations that might end up being less constructive, which is, of course, exactly the language was used by Jenny Fox at the email at 4:56. So, okay, that's the chronology. That's the timeline of this debate. It seems to all happen all at one day, which is the 12th of October. It doesn't seem to be that there is anyone who contacts them independently with concerns about you. Rather, it seems that Sam Irvin has sent at least one email, one to Jenny Fox, and I rather strongly suspect, though all the redacted froms and tos, I rather suspect it's the same person, Sam Irvin, who has contacted the person at this other organization, we don't know who that is, saying, "Do you have a problem?" So she's fished for information about you, or concerns rather, not information, but concerns about you. And then she's decided, once one person has said, yeah, actually, I don't want to be on the panel, she then says to the other person, yeah, well, we've decided we're going to cancel Lizze Harewood. So that seems to be the case. My question to you, therefore, sorry for all of that, but it seems to me that important to get that chronology of emails.
Yeah.
Is that your impression of events? And this is exactly what happened. And that therefore the problem was not that people came up with problems about you or concerns about you, rather that someone, in this case, Sam Irvin, it seems, independently of her own accord, contacts people to ask if they had problems with you, and that was the basis for the decision. And then 5 minutes later, they took all of 5 minutes to decide, or she did, to withdraw you permanently.
Yes, I think that was particularly clear when I saw the email from Stonewall where they had never heard of me. And only after her mention, you know, as you say, sort of fishing for concern, then went away and, you know, Googled my name or Googled the Association of Christian Teachers. So yeah, that was precisely, and I think that was one of the kind of shocks, because I suppose I'd assumed that Stonewall had been the more muscular party to this, but it seemed that actually it was Sam, sadly. Yeah.
The prompt appears to me to be when she talks about your ideological beliefs.
Yeah.
That's the in the email
Yes.
2021 to Jenny Fox. That's very explicit.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's the later redacted email just asking about general objections, but then it mentions the topic of the debate, and that if you're from the Association of Christian Teachers, and this person then goes away and finds trans guidance from your organization, and that's the basis of their objection, which seems to be the click.
Yeah.
So that I think is instructive about this. Would you agree this is based on your ideological beliefs and the fact that you are a member of the Association of Christian Teachers?
Yes, I've always been convinced. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I mean, that really is, for me, it seems to me, the crux of the evidence that has been presented to us. I don't know if other members of the panel agree, but that's something I think that would be the proof, if you like, if there is going to be any, that there was an ideological basis for this, and it is related to your religion, or certainly the ideological beliefs associated rather with your religion. So that, I think, is why I'm bringing this up as the most important part of the exchange. I don't have any further questions, so I will leave it there.
Right.
Thank you very much for your contributions.
Thank you very much, Peter. Very, very forensic. Lizzie, I'm just, if I could just talk to you just for a moment before we go round for round two. I'm conscious, looking at Westminster Insight's website, under their About Me page, there's a few statements. First of all, that they would say that they're politically impartial content, no political affiliations, ensuring that all participants are able to contribute to the debate, all participants. Under their values section, they include, we are inclusive, we promote equality and diversity in all that we do, through our events, content, through our training programs, and within our organization. We are neutral in all that we do. We are not politically, regionally, or in other ways biased. We aim to have no barriers, cutting across sectors and regions to reach all audiences, to share experiences, to collaborate, to form connections, and to establish partnerships. Do you feel that describes the way in which you've been dealt with?
No. I think, in short, no. I think that there's a bit of a myth around the equality and diversity. That is embedded in the...
So in terms of your beliefs, your position, you've expressed to us that on no occasion have you indicated that you were intentional to be combative, or to argue, or to humiliate, or to isolate, or alienate, or be aggressive in any way. Absolutely. So do you feel that the values expressed by the organization on their website really aren't the values that you yourself has experienced in terms of your participation?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think
yeah. And then you mentioned, you referred earlier on to the Education Act obliquely, and you mentioned that teachers are allowed, in fact, to have debate on contentious issues in the classroom. And I wonder, is it not only from the Education Act's perspective that teachers are allowed, but actually they're obliged to have both sides of any contentious issues presented, and that in fact an organisation that purports to educate policymakers and teachers around how they teach in the classroom should be putting that to the fore and demonstrating it, in fact, in the way they organise their own conduct and their own conferences around presenting issues. Do you feel that came across in the way that you were dealt with by them?
I think Alice Catterall picked up on that, and perhaps she was trying to kind of save a bit of a sinking ship there. But absolutely, I think this is the very crux of the matter, is that for so long now, or particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, the tone of the debate has ramped up, and it has now become that the Christian perspective is contentious, and that the approach of Westminster Insight has just built on that assumption, whereas the guidance that the government have issued, which is now due to be updated, and I think for the better, thankfully, I think, you know, their guidance is that balanced debate may take place, and I think balanced debate should take place, and actually it is it's a complete dereliction of duty not to present different perspectives on issues such as marriage, the importance and the benefits of marriage, on issues such as sexual relationships, on issues such as pornography, and gender and sex, the reality of gender and sex, and I just think that you know, it is very worrying when the approach of Westminster Insight basically contradicts the spirit of the guidance that is issued by the government.
Now, Alice Catterall seems to have, in her emails to you, seems to have said that Sam spoke incorrectly. Interesting terminology, because when you look at the detail of the emails, Sam was obviously representing the organisation in organising the event, etc., etc. But nevertheless, she then seems to say in a couple of places, well, further to research with schools and stakeholders, we've felt that actually including that bit in this particular conference wasn't relevant, so we've dropped the whole bit. So we haven't dropped you, Lizzie, we've dropped the whole bit. When in fact, I think, as other people have highlighted from correspondence, you were dropped with definite effect before the whole bit was dropped. So yes. I'm just wondering, the evidence that she speaks of with respect to having consulted schools, are you aware of any of that has led to dropping of the segment altogether?
I'm sorry, are you talking about the email that Alice Catterall?
Yeah, so Alice wrote to you with saying, well, actually, we've dropped the whole segment. So we haven't just dropped you, we've dropped the whole segment, and implying that Sam was wrong. It wasn't about you, it was about the whole segment. Further to consultation with schools and research with schools and other people, we've dropped the whole segment because it's not really necessary for this thing. Are you aware of any of the evidence that she says she got from schools and other places in order to lead her to the conclusion to drop the whole segment?
I really don't understand what that means, research with schools and key stakeholders. Yeah, no, I suppose it feels just like it's obscuring the actual issue. Now that doesn't really make any sense to me. Research with schools.
No, you're not aware of anything having taken place subsequent to the arrangement of the event and the speakers and the agenda that indicated it was. Okay, fair enough. We'll take another quick round from people, if that's okay with you, Lizzie, and those who want to ask any further follow-up questions. We'll start again with Jamie.
Excuse me, Tony.
Oh, hello.
I haven't been asked to say anything. I'm not a formal member of this group, but do you mind if I say a few words?
Well, I'm going to have to check with our administrator as to whether, in fact,
Oh,
I think I didn't realise that public participants
Hello.
were able to
Hello.
take part.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Deborah, you shouldn't have been unmuted.
Right.
There's no public participation in the proceedings. You're free to
oh, okay.
email the chair or
All right
me
then.
with a point for clarification, but not during the
Okay then.
proceedings.
No, that's fine.
Thank you,
What
Deborah.
email should I?
Thank you very much. And Deborah, if you have been muted, and anyone else, in fact, who's listening as part of the process, please contact the administrator and whoever you got the information from. So, Jamie, if I could return back to you if you've got any follow-up questions.
I do have. Thanks, Tony. Thanks very much again, Lizzie, for your very comprehensive answers. We very much appreciate that. I think Peter Williams has covered all most of what I was going to deal with, but just a couple of follow-ups on that. In the email of the 12th of October, the 1420 email from Sam Irvin to Jenny Fox, who was, if you remember, the PSHE Association, where she says, after much deliberation and discussion, following further feedback from another speaker, we've asked Lizze Harewood to step down. Again, obvious question, but permit me to ask it. What light, in your view, does that shed upon Alice Cattrall's claim in response to your email, where Alice says, we aim to be neutral on topics and follow government guidance and policy. And further, contributors do not have the authority to veto other contributors and override Westminster Insight. But we do seek to put our events together in a collaborative way in consultation with others. What light, in your view, does that email shed on Alice Cattrall's claim?
I suppose perhaps she was answering idealistically. In an ideal situation, she was saying contributors don't have the authority. I think perhaps I know that would be what she.
Let me put it to you more bluntly. It makes a nonsense of it, doesn't it?
It does. I'm trying to be generous to her, but yes, it does. It does. I think. I mean, I think the fact of the matter is that once Sam had realised what a Christian perspective might be on some of these issues, she then worried that this would then antagonise a certain segment of the contributors, or potentially antagonise in whatever way that she thought that might manifest. And panicked, so cancelled me, and obviously Alice Cattrall's response was to my direct question: do contributors have the authority to veto other contributors? She says no, but obviously is trying to then wash over it by saying that we seek to be collaborative, etc. But no, obviously I think the integrity of the leadership, or particularly the oversight of the conference producer, is questionable.
And we've seen that it's abundantly clear that at an earlier stage, the producers did not intend to remove the segment you were to appear in, but only to remove you.
Yeah.
Do you and that was in response to Jenny Fox, when they asked Jenny Fox if she objected to you. Do you happen to know if Jenny Fox did object to you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, I know PSHE Association has quite a sort of a wide-ranging. I mean, there are many that would have concerns about lots of materials that they might advocate, but I think there's a broader church, as it were, within the PSHE Association, who might accept a range of perspectives.
So that leads me on to the question where she says she didn't want to, quote, upset anyone. Well, she clearly didn't mind upsetting you or ACT. So who do you think it was she was wanting to avoid upsetting?
I think those that were kind of representing the lobbyists, kind of fringe of the LGBT community.
Who in particular?
Well, possibly Stonewall, although Stonewall, obviously the individual representing Stonewall, didn't seem overly kind of distressed, I think it was more the overall feeling that this is an LGBT promoting conference, not just a kind of a neutral place where we can discuss issues, but actually has, I mean, she says, you know, we want this to be fully LGBT inclusive, which I suppose means then aligning yourself with the promotion of LGBT values through the curriculum.
Do you think the email dated the 12th of October, timed at 1:56, which is in response to your data subject access request, heavily redacted, which reads, in that case, I will remove Lizze Harewood permanently from the agenda, again saying I don't wish to upset anyone, and wish the event to be LGBT inclusive, whatever that means. From what we've seen of your evidence so far, that seems to mean Christian exclusive. Please carry on as before. Nothing will change from the list of speakers I sent to you earlier. Given that this comes from Westminster Insight, it's not clear why the sender's name is redacted, and as Peter suggested, it's probably Sam Irvin. But it comes directly after an email from the Stonewall group, which has mysteriously been redacted in full and appears to be a response to Stonewall. And you said that Alice Cattrall told you that it was Stonewall who objected to you. Do you think that email did in fact come from Stonewall?
Which?
The one that's been heavily redacted.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's an unfair question. Let me take you to the redacted email, the 12th of October, timed at 13:51, with a subject heading, and it's redacted to both to whom it went and from whom it came. But it does have a subject heading: Westminster Insights RSHE in Schools Conference. The writer, and this is the one that seems to be quite fairly clearly Stonewall, states, I have not heard of the organization before, but have just read an article they wrote about the trans guidance on their website. I don't think it would be appropriate for both of us to be on the agenda. If you could let me know how you would like to proceed. This response seems to suggest that it is a negative response to Westminster Insight's inquiry as to whether or not they would be happy with you as a speaker. Is that your view? Have I got that right? Or
yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And this seems to support your view expressed in your letter to Alice Cattrall, in which you set out those 4 questions, that other organizations were in effect seeking to exclude you as a speaker or to have you excluded. Is that still your view?
Yes, absolutely. I think prompted by Sam Irvine. Sam Irvine, absolutely.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
Oh,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Roberts, do you have any follow-up questions?
Thank you. I'd like to draw on a quote that has already been cited by one or more of the commissioners, but my question is quite different. So, Lizzie, in an email dated 12th of October last year, the conference producer at Knowledge Exchange stated to a representative from the RSHE Association, and I quote, after much deliberation and discussion following further feedback from another speaker, we have asked Lizze Harewood to step down. We didn't intend for this event to turn into a clash of ideologies, and that is what I fear will happen sadly. It is an extremely sensitive topic, and we do not wish to upset anyone. Therefore, I have removed Lizzie from the agenda. So she claims she didn't want to upset anyone, but how did you feel that you were cancelled from this event because your contribution wasn't wanted?
So again, I didn't personalize this, and I think without wanting to be overly spiritual, I know that the Bible says that we are to expect attacks and opposition. I very much saw it as an indication of the current zeitgeist, that it was my faith that they were objecting to. It was my my trust in what biblical authority is, was what they were objecting to, and the idea that that would actually have an impact on the way that people should live their lives. My perspective, that my stance that actually the Bible is authoritative and should be authoritative for Christians, and that is something that we can talk about. So it was disheartening, and it was, rather than it being a personal kind of slight, I saw it as something that discouraged me for the sake of young people in our schools, that this is not deemed worthy of consideration. And I just think that is what upsets me and makes me feel a certain amount of anger, that actually children are being denied another perspective, and that's coming from conferences that are training and talking about best practice. That, I think that is that's the crux of it, really. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. Under the core values section on the website of Westminster Insight, which Tony referred to, I have a specific extract that I want to focus on and ask you about. It states that we are inclusive, we promote equality and diversity in all that we do through our events, content, through our training programs, and within our organization. Now, given what you've experienced, what you've been telling us, what do you think it means when they say, this is Westminster Insight, when they claim to promote equality and diversity in all that we do through our events, etc.? What does that mean, do you think?
I think that my perception is now that this is it's the way that the cultural zeitgeist interprets equality and diversity, that progressive sort of segments or progressive identities are included, and that means inclusion. When it comes to diversity of thought and diversity of opinion, that's something that isn't necessarily tolerated or embraced. And actually, there's no sense of promoting diversity of thoughts, having a place for everyone at the table to discuss with respect. So there was no equality really in my experience with Westminster Insight. I didn't get equal treatment with the kind of those that represent the kind of LGBT minorities or identities. So no, I wouldn't say that they are truly inclusive at all.
Right, thank you. I have one other question. The managing director of Knowledge Exchange, in an email to you dated November the 3rd last year, in this email, she apologizes for how you've been treated, and I'm not going to read it. It's a very long email. What she effectively is saying is that what happened to you should not have happened, and that they would happily consider you being brought to one of their conferences in the future. Do you feel that this explanation, A, is authentic, or is it just a way of making you feel better about things? And do they, will they invite you at some point, do you think? Is this going to happen?
So this is something that I was kind of waiting on. because Alice, in addition to the email that she sent me, we also had quite a long phone conversation where she asked if I would like to come along to the new version of the conference, and obviously trying to express or trying to show generosity of spirit and grace. I said, yes, I would like to come along. I'd like to hear what, you know, people have got to say. But I didn't receive any further information about it. I did go and do some research afterwards, and I found that they postponed the conference that was initially meant to be, was it February, and then they postponed it till April. And then now I see that they postponed it again until is it September or sometime in the autumn. I can see that they've obviously had significant difficulty with knowing how to pitch this. But no, I've not been contacted, because she did say we would like to in a future conference cover political and religious, not political, sorry, religious and cultural sensitivities on this matter. Would you be willing to contribute? And I said, yes, I would. And I've not heard anything since. So no, I believe that was a way of kind of airbrushing the incident, perhaps keeping me sweet, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe trusting that I was a bit naive. But no, I certainly haven't had any further correspondence or invitation.
Okay, thank you very much, Lizzie. I don't have any further questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Robert. Nina, do you have any follow-up questions? Don't feel obliged, but if you do, the floor is yours.
Just two very quick questions of clarification, probably more for my edification than anyone else. I'm probably not a detail-oriented person in the same way as others. So just on some of the redacted emails, there's discussion of a fee, which is obviously not aimed at you, but clearly somebody was being offered a fee and accepted a fee. I'm just wondering, well, just to clarify, A, that you were not offered a fee for your participation, where some other people were, and it looks to me like it was somebody, I think from Stonewall, who is being offered a fee, or certainly it's somebody who's agreed to speak on the gender panel. So just to clarify that. And second of all, the phone conversation that you had with Sam, was it?
Yeah, I had one with Sam and one with Alice. Yeah.
Did you, in either of those conversations, think, oh, should I record this, or did you ask them if that was a possibility, or did it simply not cross your mind? I mean, I know there are legal issues with recording phone conversations, but I'm just wondering if that anything like that came to mind. So those are just my two sort of more technical questions, if you like.
On the idea of recording the phone call, it didn't even occur to me that I should do that. And again, perhaps naively, I tend to to have faith that I don't know, people generally are decent, and I wouldn't need to use evidence, a phone call against them. But yeah, I certainly didn't even think that I should consider that. But yeah, maybe in retrospect it should have been a Zoom call or something, and I should have. But and on the topic of the fee, I also noted that in one of the emails. No, I certainly wasn't offered a fee. And that would have not, I mean, I certainly would not have agreed to do it on the basis of a fee anyway. But I think, I may be wrong, but I think that may be because the person who was offered a fee was delivering something that was more substantive, whereas I was sitting on a round table. Not that they obviously make these decisions strategically, don't they? But no, I certainly wasn't offered a fee.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Nina. Mr. Williams, any follow-up questions? Thank you very much again for your patience.
Not at all. I just have a few questions just to clarify the evidence before us, because I think this is very important. It may not be me that you can't answer them straight away just because you don't have it in front of you, but if you can, that'd be great. So if not, we'll talk afterwards. Yeah, we'll correspond. So the first email, which is marked on the 10th of the 10th, 2023 at 11:02 BST that begins, "Hi Lizzie, I hope this message finds you well. I have a rather delicate matter to raise. I would be grateful if you would get back to me right away." This is the first where Sam Irvine is raising your views from any papers, articles, footage, etc. Please could you, and I think this is what then prompts, if I understand this correctly, this is what prompts your phone conversation with her. Firstly, is that right? Does this prompt your phone conversation with her? So
Yes, absolutely. I gave her a
the
ring.
same day, right?
Yeah, I gave her a ring straight away.
So that would have been between the then and the email that you have at 12:01, where you say, "Hi Sam, I was wondering if you had any further correspondence with the other contributors to the roundtable discussion," right?
Yes, because she said that she would correspond with the other parties and then get back to me.
Okie doke. That's great. So it would appear then that that email is in fact on the 12th of October, not on the 10th of October, if it's all on the same day. Am I right in saying that?
So the one that she sent to me saying, "Oh, I have a delicate matter to raise," was on the 10th.
It was on the 10th. Okay.
Yes. And then I spoke to her on the phone.
On the same day
On the same day.
Right.
And
So
then
that's also on the 10th.
that was all on the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And then I prompted her, because I wanted to know whether I was still going to be included. I prompted her on the 12th at 12:01, and she got back to me that day at 13 minutes past 2 and said, "They'll have to ask me to step down."
Right. That's great. That puts that in the right order for me. Let me just put that in. 13:02. Because that's not on the information we present. Right. So that gives the timeline as the 10th. She sends you that email. You then have that phone conversation with her. On the 12th, you prompt her, and it is at that point, half an hour later, she contacts Jenny Fox.
Yeah. Okay.
Before then,
Yeah.
in fact, no, to be fair, it's 11:40 when we have the first redacted email. So it's actually at 11:40 those 2 days later. And then it would appear, assuming this is all correct, it would appear that then you prompt her in any case. Then she gets in touch with Jenny Fox. And then we have this other correspondent with the redacted person. Now, I should just say, just for the sake of our recording here, that we don't know that this is from Stonewall. We are presuming that based on conversations that were had between you and I forget the other lady,
Alice Cattrall.
Alice Cattrall. I think that's a reasonable presumption. I think that's a reasonable inference, but it isn't what we have in the emails that we have. But I think that's a reasonable presumption to make. I think that's fine. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to make sure that we have all of that in the right order, and it's very clear that unless Sam Irvine, and this is my last question to ask your opinion on this. Unless Sam Irvine had phone conversations with other people, it seems the only other correspondence she has had to fish effectively for concerns with you were with two people, one of whom is redacted, but we can presume based on what you know elsewhere may very well be Stonewall. The other was Jenny Fox from PSHE Association. Do you think that's correct?
Yes. And as I did the subject access request with Stonewall, and they presented these emails. I think it's pretty evidential that it is Stonewall. But yes, that's my belief.
Great. Thank you very much for that. That clarifies very helpfully, and that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Peter. Thank you to the other commissioners. Lizzie, I suppose there's an opportunity for you now to share any closing remarks, any closing thoughts before we've been going for about an hour and a half now. We've dealt extremely thoroughly, and you responded very graciously and humbly around your situation, what you've experienced. Are there any comments or views you'd want to make to conclude?
Chairman, can I just make one quick intervention?
Oh, of course you can. Go for it, Jenny.
I'm just wondering if, in the course of Lizzie doing that, just for the benefit of our readers of the final report who may not know what is actually taught in RSHE in schools, I don't know if Lizzie can perhaps give us some examples that in particular might be objected to by Christians, just to show that there is a substance here of which, for want of a better expression, might require a Christian perspective in addition to others. What sort of
Great.
things?
Well, yeah, you can do that, Lizzie, and or you can point people to websites that contain an awful lot of information about those things. I'll leave it to you to give some closing remarks and your thoughts.
Well, I mean, this kind of links to both of those, to that question, and also a closing remark is that when it comes to RSHE, and thankfully, I think the tide is turning and the government have become aware, due to the diligence of some MPs and some others and those that have been involved in a impartial review of the curriculum. There have been contested ideologies taught as facts, the gender unicorn, the gender bread man. There have been organisations that have called for called students to smash heteronormativity. And those are obviously the ideas that make the headlines, and for good reason. However, I represent Christian teachers up and down the country who are having, sometimes it's a thin end of the wedge, they're being taken off teaching certain topics, or they're not allowed to teach relationships and sex education, or they are brought into disciplinary measures because they won't teach something that's contested as fact, or that they are told that they're not allowed to speak about a biblical understanding of marriage, or explore the societal benefits of marriage in a way that is deemed to be offensive to those that may not come from a family that has married parents, etc. So I personally feel that I'm in a privileged position where I represent an organisation of teachers. I can speak out and I don't need to fear losing my job. Whereas there are thousands of teachers, many of whom may not be Christians, but many of whom are, who have these deeply held beliefs and are told that they are not allowed to express them in the same way that other people with deeply held beliefs are. And that is what my concern is with this, that it does a great disservice to our children if we do not allow them to actually have a plurality of opinions and ideas laid before them. So that's what my overriding concern is for the young people of the UK, really. So, you're on mute, Tony.
There you go. Great. It's a lovely way to finish, Lizzie. I'm very grateful for your comments. I'm grateful for the dignity that you've shown in relating what must have been quite a troubling period in your life and circumstances and situations. I hope that they do come back to you. I hope that they do use you. That would be a vindication of some genuineness in what they've said to you. But for now, can I thank you so much for your time, Lizze Harewood? Can I thank all the commissioners as well for their time, and for those of you who have joined us live as we're recording. And let me just point out that we're waiting for an imminent announcement from the government about the RSE review and about new RSE guidance. So this is pre that, if you're listening after that. And meanwhile, thank you all very much for your time. Please look at other inquiries on the website and hear lots of other interesting stories and what's been going on there too. Thanks everyone very much.